They say the photograph was found in a rusted frame behind the orphanage's chapel wall, a woman in lace, holding an infant whose eyes are the color of wet ash. The image is dated 1912, though the building wasn't dedicated until 1918. Local records claim the land once belonged to a man named Alaric Dunn, a plantation owner who died in disgrace before the turn of the century. His home was sold, torn down, and replaced by the St. Margaret's Home for Lost Children. No one ever questioned why they built it there, why the church chose that particular plot. But in the photograph, behind the mother and child, there's a shadow. Not a man's shape, not smoke. Just absence, like light refuses to touch that part of the past. For years, the photo was whispered about in parish records, misfiled, then sealed, until a copy surfaced in 1935. And that was when the survivors began to talk, about children who arrived and never left, about rooms that smelled of brine and copper, and about the day the matron herself stopped praying. Before it was a home for children, it was Dunn's property, one of the last plantations in the county to fall. Alaric Dunn's wealth came from soil, though by the 1880s the ground had turned sour, refusing cotton, refusing corn. His workers spoke of the root sickness, a blight that crawled from the creek bed and spread upward. Cattle were born with twisted limbs, and one by one the laborers left. His wife, Celeste, wrote in her journal that her husband heard breathing in the trees. She claimed something beneath the fields demanded offerings. Neighbors dismissed it as grief. She'd lost 2 infants by then. But her third child, a boy, survived. He grew silent, pale, and watchful. The journals end in 1892. When the church purchased the land in 1908, they built over the foundations of the Dunn estate. The first brick was laid exactly above where the family crypt had once been. They said the past had to be buried, not sanctified, but the ground remembered. The children would later say the floorboards pulsed on humid nights, that they could hear hearts beating beneath them. The orphanage opened on a rainless day in May 1918. War had ended. Influenza had not. Trains arrived with children too weak to stand, escorted by nuns who no longer sang hymns. The matron, Sister Aurelia, was said to have chosen the site for its isolation. The county records note her handwriting, sharp, deliberate, and the phrase she wrote beside the first census of wards, "The past is compost for the righteous." No one questioned her methods at first. Children vanished all the time in those years, swept by disease, by poverty, by war. But St. Margaret's had fewer burials than admissions. When asked, Sister Aurelia said the unwanted were sent to higher institutions. No names were ever confirmed. Local farmers reported strange lights above the old creek. Some said they heard chanting on windless nights, voices neither young nor old. One letter from a visiting priest described the chapel's crucifix weeping dark water. The letter was burned, its author reassigned. By 1921, the county inspector found the orphanage immaculate. Every bed made, every child silent, staring. The inspector never returned. The phrase first appears in an unsigned testimony from 1935. She laughed when she saw him. Then she stopped. It refers to Celeste Dunn, the plantation owner's wife. The story claims Alaric Dunn mocked her suspicions, that she accused him of unfaithfulness, that she feared something older than jealousy had taken root between them. When her third child was born, she insisted it wasn't his. Neighbors recalled the baby's strange gaze, gray, reflective, almost colorless. Alaric called it hysteria. But when the boy reached 7, workers refused to look him in the eyes. They said it was like seeing their own reflection moving before they did. That child's name was Ezra. His lineage vanished from records after 1900, but the church archives list N. E. Dunn among the first benefactors of St. Margaret's. It's unclear if Ezra built the orphanage as penance, or to continue his father's work. Witnesses decades later described a portrait of the orphanage's founder that once hung in the main hall. It was removed after several children claimed the eyes followed them, not from side to side, but from within. Every building has a cornerstone. St. Margaret's had something else, a foundation stone, engraved not with scripture, but with a single phrase, Dominus Radix. The Lord is the root. When the stone was unearthed during renovations in 1932, it was warm to the touch, though no sun reached that deep. Beneath it, workers found a cavity lined with bone fragments and rusted iron nails arranged like roots. The priest overseeing construction ordered silence. Later accounts claim the matron had the workers blessed and then dismissed. All of them left town within a month. After the excavation, the children began to dream of a tree growing beneath their beds. Some woke with soil under their nails. One nurse reported a boy humming in his sleep, a rhythm that matched the distant tolling of the chapel bell, though the bell tower had been sealed since 1924. By then, Sister Aurelia's handwriting had changed. Her letters grew disjointed, looping, as if echoing something whispered too closely. In 1923, a letter from the bishop's office records an inspection visit. Two clerics stayed for a week at St. Margaret's. Their report is thin, mostly weather notes, daily prayers, a list of children seen at lessons. But there's a sentence scratched at the bottom margin. The heir here has memory. The next year, both men requested transfer to parishes in the far north. One died within months, raving about roots that speak. The other never wrote again. Local rumor said the visitors found something beneath the chapel floor, a network of tunnels or old drains from the plantation days. Sister Aurelia denied their existence. Still, on humid nights, the ground around the orphanage steamed as if exhaling. The children called it the breath. Records from the early 1920s mention new arrivals, war orphans, influenza survivors, the unwanted. The children invented games the sisters didn't teach. One was called Trading Eyes. They would sit in a ring and whisper confessions. Whoever faltered first had to stare into another's eyes until one of them blinked. Teachers dismissed it as childish bravado until several pupils complained of seeing faces that weren't their own. When the matron banned the game, the dormitory windows began fogging from the inside. Words traced into the mist, "See me." The message appeared in at least 5 dorms on separate nights. A visiting doctor suggested mass suggestion brought on by isolation. He stayed one night. By morning, he was gone. His medical bag was found at the edge of the old creek. In 1925, Sister Aurelia stopped writing letters. A replacement was appointed, though no obituary was ever issued. The new matron, Sister Helen, inherited her office intact. Among the papers, she found a single sentence written repeatedly across the last page of a ledger. "I know whose eyes they are." That summer, attendance at Mass dwindled. Some children refused to enter the chapel. They said the crucifix blinked. Maintenance staff replaced the statue twice. Each time, the new one aged overnight, its paint cracking along the pupils. The parish carpenter resigned, saying he wouldn't feed the house any more faces. A surviving newspaper clipping from 1926 advertises a county fair. In one photograph, a group of St. Margaret's children stand in uniform beside Sister Helen. All are smiling except one boy in the back, his eyes glassy and unfocused. Under magnification, archivists noticed his reflection in a nearby mirror shows him looking directly at the camera, though his head is turned away. 2 days after the fair, that child vanished. The matron claimed he was adopted by a traveling family. No records match. Farmers later found a pair of children's shoes half buried near the orchard, soil packed tightly inside them. As though grown there, the orchard stood on the site of the old Dunn garden, planted after the war to feed the orphanage. Its fruit was plentiful but never ripened fully. Workers reported a hum in the branches at dusk. Children said the trees whispered their names. In 1927, a storm uprooted one of the oldest trees. Its roots clutched a fragment of bone carved with the initial CD, Celeste Dunn. After that, half the orchard withered in a single season. The surviving trees bore fruit streaked with gray veins that bled a clear, saline sap. Sister Helen forbade anyone from eating them. Yet months later, several children were found with the same gray tint clouding their irises. By 1928, rumors reached the county seat. A doctor was dispatched to assess the orphanage's health conditions. His report mentions malnutrition, mild anemia, and a peculiar symptom among several pupils, an irregular reflection of light across the cornea, as if mirrored from behind. He prescribed vitamins and left a follow-up appointment for the next spring. When he returned, the building was nearly empty. Sister Helen claimed an influenza outbreak forced evacuations. The doctor noticed no graves, no transport records. He filed a complaint. Weeks later, he was found drowned in the same creek that once bordered the Dunn plantation. After 1930, St. Margaret's ceased appearing in diocesan correspondence. The address existed, but mail returned unopened. A census taker who visited found only boarded windows and the echo of organ music drifting through dust. His notes end abruptly with a line drawn down the page, as though his pen had been pulled. When investigators finally entered the building in 1932, they found 30 beds made, no inhabitants, and the smell of ozone. Beneath one mattress lay a sealed envelope containing a photograph, the same woman and child from 1912. But now the mother's eyes were scratched out. In 1933, the county repurposed the structure as a school for troubled youth. Within months, teachers began reporting déjà vu, students claiming they had lived there before. Some called each other by names not on the roster. One night, a teacher recorded her dreams in detail, standing in a hallway, walls breathing, children lined up, whispering, "We're waiting for the roots to drink." She burned the diary, but the ash smelled of roses and salt that a minor earthquake in 1934 cracked the building's foundation. Repairs uncovered those same tunnels rumored by the 1923 clerics, brick arches descending into black mud. No one admitted entering, but afterward, workers refused payment, saying they didn't like the taste of the air. During reconstruction, an engineer described a rhythmic vibration underfoot, steady as a heartbeat. He joked that maybe the building wanted to breathe again. 3 days later, he disappeared from his hotel room, leaving behind only muddy footprints leading towards St. Margaret's. When state authorities ordered the orphanage records transferred in 1935, most documents had dissolved into pulp. Only fragments remained, names half-legible, dates repeated, ink reversed as if the pages had mirrored themselves. Among the few legible lines was the motto from the foundation stone, Dominus Radix. Archivists noted that when handled, the remaining pages left faint impressions on the skin, branch-like. They wore gloves after that. That same year, the original photograph resurfaced in an estate sale. The buyer, a local historian, displayed it briefly before it began to fade, not yellowing, but draining, as though light retreated. He reported that each night, the child's eyes grew clearer while the rest blurred. After a week, he mailed it to the diocesan archive with a note. "It's not a picture. It's a mirror." He died in his sleep 2 nights later, in winter 1935. Townspeople heard singing from the orphanage. Witnesses described children's voices layered with something deeper, like the ground joining in. When police entered, they found no one, only the old phonograph spinning a blank record. The next morning, frost traced the windows in the shape of intertwined branches. A sealed letter found decades later in the church basement bore Sister Helen's signature. "We thought charity could override inheritance. We were wrong. The root remembers. Every kindness feeds it. Every prayer waters it. I have seen the faces below the floor. They wear our eyes." The letter ends without signature. By 1936, St. Margaret's was finally condemned. Locals avoided the site. Travelers reported hearing a baby crying from underground. When crews demolished the chapel, they found no crypt, only a hollow space packed with black soil that shimmered like water. A single seed lay in the center. It was still warm. They buried it under concrete and planted grass. The parish called it a mercy. Today, nothing remains of St. Margaret's but the outline of its foundation and the trees that refuse to die. Their leaves are gray-green, their fruit flavorless. Yet at dusk, if you stand among them, the air hums faintly, as if something below is still breathing. Historians dismiss the stories as folklore, an echo of guilt from a forgotten century. But each time the archives are reopened, the photograph reappears somewhere new, unchanged except for one detail. The infant's eyes, once pale gray, now mirror the viewer perfectly. And that is where the record ends.